Hello, third and fourth grade Virtual Academy art learners. Today is part two of our Van Gogh landscape project. Last week I just had you draw in the landscape for part one, which should be fairly easy. Now comes the tough part. This part's going to take you considerably longer and you're going to need a bunch of patience to get this one done. But when it's finished, it looks incredible and we are drawing in the Van Gogh style. So right here, I've got my Starry Night picture back out, because today we're going to talk about color. So what you're going to need to color today is you are going to need crayons. Don't use markers, don't use colored pencils. We've been using those a lot, and some of you might be running out. But for this project, you do want a drawing item that can be very fast and last a long time. And crayons are excellent for this type of project. Also, if you have oil pastels, they work as well. Now, I chose crayons because of the project itself, but also I have more colors to choose from with crayons than I do with markers, because colored pencils would take me much longer. So I chose crayons. So you're going to want to get crayons for this. If you have the 24 pack, that should be okay. If you have the 48 pack of Crayola or another company's crayons, you should have plenty of colors to pick from. The more colors, the more choices that you get for this. So I'm going to talk about those in just a second. Now, when we start sprinkling in our color for our project, we have to understand how Van Gogh painted in order to get our crayon to match the same like chunky paint style that he did. Now, Van Gogh never painted really nice and smooth. Everything was these short little chunky lines of color, and I'm talking small, like no bigger than your thumbnail. They are tiny. He would dip his paintbrush in and then paint one or two, maybe three swatches of color, very small, and then dip his paintbrush back in and get more color. But as he would go, he would use the same style or same family of colors throughout his work, such as when he wanted to do the sky and show it blue, he would only choose blue colors. He would not want to put too much purple or anything like that in there unless he's showing a night sky. His towns down here in this picture, he had a lot of light blues and grays reflecting the blue from the sky onto the buildings. He used darker colors for the Cypress Tree over here. And then for his stars and the suns and moons he would put in, he would use lots of yellows and oranges. He did not use red too much in something like this, but you can use reds for your pictures, and we'll get into that. But again, to repeat, short, little, quick lines. This whole project, you are not allowed to color anything in as we normally have been doing. Please do not do that. You are going to be making thousands upon thousands of little tiny lines for this project. And you're going to be quick with them. Little lines. So you're going to draw a line, pick up your crayon, and continue to draw more and more and more lines. So no coloring allowed. The only coloring is these short, quick little lines to create this project. So I'm going to move this picture out of the way, and I'm going to get started. Now I have one of my drawings from last time over here. And I'm just going to take this one right here that I drew last time as another example. This time, instead of the road from part one, I have a river right here. So where you start is entirely up to you, but you have to break it down into the items that you have. I have the cypress tree and the river. I also have ground here, ground in between, and ground over to this side. I have mountain range number 1, mountain range number 2, sky, and moon. So I don't have many objects in here, but what I just want to make sure of is that when I start getting color in here, what colors I use for my river, I do not want to use in any other place. And yes, if you have a daytime sky with a river and you want blue with blue, you might have to make the choice to go, well, you know what, I don't have a lot of options, so I'm going to have to take the same blues I used in the river for the sky. And that's okay. The reason is because this mountain range is kind of separating where the river ends and the sky begins. You got this little space of buffer zone right there, which won't lead your river into your sky, and that's something good. All right? So I have some questions here to pose to you guys. You have your drawing done. Now, what are your choices of colors that you want to use? Now, we do want to try to keep this partially realistic when we add in our colors. So you're going to have to figure out what works well. Like I have my river here. I'm not going to put orange in my river. That just does not make very much sense. So I'm going to try to figure out what I want to do. So I'm going to start with my Cypress Tree over here. My Cypress Tree in the Van Gogh picture was actually like a blackish, dark purple brown. But you know what? For my tree, I'm going to use an assortment of greens because I have a plan in place of what I'm going to do. I'm going to do greens here. Then for my land, my ground, I'm going to make it look like it's some sort of like field with some yellows, maybe some oranges, maybe a little sprinkle of green in there. I want to make it look like it's like a hay field or like a cornfield in fall or something like that that's got a little bit of worn out color, such as like maybe a light brown, tan, yellow, orange, maybe sprinkle in a light green. My river, strictly blues. My mountains, I'm going to use maybe a tiny bit of light purple and some grays. Now I have a moon with a night sky, so my moon is going to be some maybe some yellows, and then my sky is going to be dark colors. Like I'll do purple and maybe a little bit of black. You got to be careful when using black. So you got to figure out your color choices. All right. So I've got my crayons here. Now I said I want to do my Cypress Tree with an assortment of greens. Now the amount of color that you want to use is you want to try to get 3 colors per item. So with my Cypress Tree, I want to get at least 3 different shades of green or more if I can find it. Now there's no need to get like 8. You don't need 8 colors. 3 is great, 4 is better, but you don't need anything like 5. So I'm going to see what I got here. Okay, I got forest green. I'm going to pick out this yellow green and olive green. I got 3 different shades of green right here, so this will work out good. So you want to pick 3 different colors for each thing if possible. If the only choice that you have is 2, then use 2. 1 is not allowed. You will not get the effect of the Van Gogh style if you are only choosing 1 color. You want to use multiple colors that are similar, that work well together. So 1 color is not allowed. 3 is ideal. Okay, so choice of color, and I'll break down this a little bit later about what we need to do. So I've got my choice of color for my first option. There's my Cypress Tree I'm going to start with. So now if I move on from choice of color, line size. Now I did talk about line size. Every line I'm going to make is going to be no longer than my thumbnail. It needs to be tiny. It needs to be small, and you need to make lots of them. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out which colors I want to use, first, second, or third. It does not matter. It really doesn't. Although if you start out with the darker color first, your tree will look darker because you're going to be filling, this is the first color you're using, so you're probably going to be having way more lines with the very first color than anything else. Then maybe I'll use the olive green followed by the yellow green. So my tree is actually going to look quite dark here. So line size, no bigger than your thumbnail. Quick little lines, please. Third question, line direction. Well, my Cypress Tree has these wavy kind of lines that I first drew in them. I'm going to match that with the same direction of lines. So I'm going to be putting some lines in here that kind of match this wavy kind of direction, these dotted dash lines. All right? So line direction, you want it to match. My river flows in curves like this, so when I add my blue dashes, I'm going to be going in this direction as well. And then I will show you in my example about what I did for the fields, the mountains, and every other item in there. So line direction, try to match the direction that you drew with your lines with a pencil. Next thing, do you want to press down hard or light? Well, you want to press down hard. Van Gogh painted his colors very bold. They were very easy to see, so I want you to press down hard. One of the problems is, the harder you press down, the more your hand is going to start to ache. You're going to start this, and you're going to be pressing down putting down lots and lots and lots of lines. Your hand is going to start to get sore. It's okay to take some breaks. It took my hand a while to get rid of a little bit of soreness here, like several minutes where it felt comfortable, where I could continue. So if you get to that point, you can stop and start as much as you need to get this thing done. You can even do little bits every day to get it finished. It's okay. Remember, you guys have some time with this. Once you start it on Wednesday, you do not have to finish it on that Wednesday. But I want you to press down hard. Light color? Absolutely not. That is not the type of coloring and painting that Van Gogh did. Everything needs to be bright and bold and easy to see. So stick with hard coloring, please. Press down hard. Next thing, speed. How fast do you want to go? Well, if you start doing your dashes really slowly, this project is going to take you a bit of time. If you start out slowly and then realize, wow, this is kind of easy, I can do this quite a bit faster, then you can, as long as you don't get sloppy with it. Don't be crossing your lines and making X's and things like that. When you are drawing your lines, you're going to want to stick with the similar directions. I'm not going to be doing lines in my river flowing down this way, and then all of a sudden have blue lines going across the other direction. Please do not do that. You want to stick with the flow of your lines. So if you need to practice this on a spare sheet of paper, go ahead. But speed, start out slow to figure out what you're doing first, then build up the speed. But remember, if you start getting really sloppy and going out of the lines, you're going too fast for your skills. Slow down. I have mentioned that many times. So speed, start slow, build to fast. Now, how much color do you want to put in this? Well, you're going to see some white of the paper showing, and that's fine. You are not actually coloring in this paper whatsoever. It's little dashed lines to reenact exactly what Vincent van Gogh did. But everything needs to have color in it somewhere. And a good tool of measure is, if I were to take my pinky, and I want so much color in here that if I had to take my pinky and set it down on my paper, that the point of my pinky would be touching crayon in every single time I would touch in my picture. I don't want any open spaces in here. So your dash lines need to be close together. You're going to need lots of them, but no coloring in. All right, so how much color? Filled in. Filled in, but you're not coloring it the traditional way of just the side to side to fill it in. I want all dashes, but also I want so much color in here that, again, if you were to take your pinky and just touch it to the paper, you would feel crayon underneath it. So that's how much crayon needs to be loaded in this. So before I get started with this, I'm going to show you my finished one. Actually, you know what? I'm going to hold off on that. I'm going to show you how to get started, because if I show you the finished one, you're just going to go right to that. So here I go. I'm going to start with my cypress tree. So I got my crayons right here. My lines are kind of wavy, so I'm going to start towards the top. And one thing to keep in mind is that the side of your hand is going to get full of little crayon bits on here. So you might want to clean this off after like 10 or 15 minutes of coloring. Or else if you start to feel it or start to see crayon lines of your hand kind of smudging it all over the place. So here I go. Quick little lines. Leave some space in between them because I have 2 more colors to pack in there. Now, if you go through color 1, add lines. Color 2, add lines. Color 3, add lines, and you still have gigantic spaces in here, pick a color and just go back in and fill it in with more dashed lines. I'm just going to start by leaving some space in between my lines to begin with. In my finished project that I'm going to show you guys, I did go back in and add some because I found out that I just didn't have enough. I'm going to get my crayon dashes right by the edge of my drawing too. This is where drawing light, when I told you last time, was key, because you really don't want to see the pencil lines, but my pencil lines are quite dark because I wanted you guys to see where I was coloring in. All right, so this is a good start, and of course I'm not going to fill in the whole tree because I don't want to waste your time. But this is a good start right here, and I would continue these dashes, and you can see that I kind of match the edges, and these ones through the middle kind of just go straight up and down, and that's okay. If you want to put a little bit of a bump on some of these lines, you can do that as well. I'm okay with that. All right, so there we go. You can do that. Now that's color 1. Now I'm going to take color 2, my olive green. Now, I'm not going to take this crayon and color right over the lines and dashes I already made. That doesn't make any sense. So I'm going to go in and fill in dashes in between the ones I just did. Now I'm going to have to use my eyes to see. Now, if I accidentally go over a few of my lines, that's okay. I can't help that. But I'm not intentionally going to take my crayon and go right over the top of lines that I already did. You are wasting your time, and you're not going to be able to fill it in with color. The project is going to take you longer. And you can already see the difference by adding in crayon number 2 of my collection that are colors that I'm going to be putting in to the cypress tree. You can see the difference in how much more is filled in with the color. Just look here with my first color, And here it is with my second color added in. You can see the difference. This is why if you can get 3 to 4 different colors in there, this would be excellent for you to do. Now again, crayon is quicker even than paint, because with paint you would have to dip your paintbrush in a whole bunch in order to continue, but you can actually paint a lot more. You can get a lot more down on the paper with a paintbrush because they're a bit wider than this. All right, so here we go. Fill that in. Again, I would finish this all the way to the bottom. That's already looking pretty good, but I do have a bunch of empty spots in there. So now I'm going to take my last color, my yellow green that I chose. Now, this is a light color. I'm going to go in there and fill it. Now, this might be a little harder to see, but I wanted something that's a little bit light because those other 2 previous colors that I chose for the green are quite dark. And I'm just going to try to fill in what I can in between what I see with this light green. So I'm hoping that you guys can see it okay, but you can see I didn't actually physically color it in, but it actually does look colored in. And if I look close, I still can see white of the paper showing, and that's fine. Perfectly fine. That's actually what I want, but just little tiny bits of white showing. And if you look and see these bigger areas that don't have any crayon to them, fill them in with some little dashes of a color that you're working with. All right, there we go. And I would fill this in all the way on the bottom. Now, as you can see in the step-by-step I put in the document, I don't have every single step that I did. You can see I jumped ahead a little bit. The only part that I really showed one color, a second color, and a third color was the ground, to show you the difference about what it looks like when it's filled in. Because I do have some of my parts where it's just all of a sudden some items are completely colored in. And that's all I needed to show you, was just that. And for the video, just showing you the step-by-step. But you can see this is quite full. If you can get yours to look like mine, oh, that's going to look excellent when you're all done. But again, it's going to take you some time. All right? Especially after you get about halfway, you're going to feel some soreness in your hands. And that's perfectly okay. Take breaks when you need to. Just make sure that you finish it up. So now that I've used these colors for my tree, I really don't want to use those 3 colors for anything else unless I absolutely have to. So now trying to figure out what you need to use. My river, well, I'm going to want a collection of blues. Now, do I want some light blues? Let's say I want a blue-green. Maybe I want to use sky blue. I want to use something light and dark, and maybe a third color here. I'll just choose cerulean right there. I would use those to make my river. My mountains, let's see, I would probably want gray to represent the rocks. I also might want a dark brown as well. Now those are 2 decently dark colors. I might want to pick something else that just adds a little hint of a different color in there. I'm going to try this light purple just to give it a try. All right. My land, and I said I wanted to make it look like some sort of field in the fall. So I might take, let's see here. I'll take this tan color. It's called Tumbleweed. That's the one that's in my pack. Let's see, burnt orange. And now I want something a bit more on the brighter side. Something a bit more yellow-orange. I would use those 3. Now, if I want to add in like a 4th color, I might choose something like yellow-green to represent maybe grass or part of the field that's still alive with bright green. All right, so my mountains, water, got my ground, my sky. Now, my sky, I'm going to want to choose something a little bit different here. Blue-violet looks good. It'll be a dark color because it's night. And then I will choose this orchid color, a light purple, and then lastly I'm going to choose black. Now black is a dangerous color because it kind of absorbs all the energy of all the other colors. It's a quick go-to color, but you don't want to use it too much, which is why when I do the sky lines in here, I'm going to use black last, sparingly, not a whole lot. Now for my moon, I'm going to want something bright. So I'm going to pick an assortment of like yellow, and I've got a different yellow here. I've got dandelion. It's one of my favorite colors in the container. And then lastly, I might want to use peach for my moon. All right, so color selection is important. Make sure that you choose the colors that you want. And again, get an extra piece of paper and test it out first and see what you like. Because remember, you can't erase crayon once you put it in here. It's stuck on there for good. So you might want to test out some lines and some dots and dashes with each color combination to see what works best. All right, so this is what I would go with here. And again, I'm going to use the same philosophy right here with everything else. All right, now for my sky though, I want to match that swirly kind of Van Gogh look. So my dots and dashes are probably going to go around everything and have like on these waves and bumps and things like that. For my mountains, the dashes are probably going to start at the peaks and kind of go down at random angles like a fan. My river is going to flow with the river. And for my ground, I might just stick with one direction of lines, maybe at an angle. So I'm going to show you mine. My finished one right now. Okay, so this is the one I'm working on, but here's the one I finished. This did take me a lot of time, not to color, but for my hand to rest up a little bit, because these crayons, as you can see, many of them are kind of small. I've been using them for years, so they don't fit the best in my hand, and I press down quite hard, so I can feel it, the soreness in the side of my hand. So I had to take some breaks, and then I came back to it when I was ready. So you can do the same thing. But here's what I've got. Here's my road. This is the drawing I did from last week. There's my cypress tree. My fields have red, orange, and looks like dandelion in there. And I put all of those lines at an angle this way, maybe almost like the grass or the field is blowing in the wind. My road is an assortment of browns, and I went the opposite direction. I put rolling hills in there, and I did light purples for those. And I kind of just did these like little curvy lines like this in the rolling hills. The mountains, I did an assortment of angled lines, straight down lines, and angled lines this way. My moon, I just followed the shape of the moon, and I did add some stars in there. It's just a bunch of dashes that are all in like a circle-like pattern, kind of small. But again, my sky, purples and black, and I kind of just had it flow around everything. I wanted to make sure that my sky color did not go in my stars or my moon or my mountain. So when you have your colors, I want you to separate them. If you start getting your mountain colors into your sky, that means you're going too fast for your skills, guys. Slow down, take it easy, all right? And just watch what you are doing. But none of this is colored in traditionally. It's all tiny dashes of lines that are no bigger than my thumbnail. They need to be small. So you should still see what the white of the paper is showing. So again, you need to make sure how much color, all of it needs color. Remember, the end of my pinky, every time I put it down, should be touching crayon lines somewhere. How fast should I be going? Well, I started out slow to get the hang of it, and then I built my speed up to make sure that I could do it at a faster pace. Hard or light, I press down hard to get my crayon looking nice and bright and bold, easy to see. So make sure you press down hard. Line direction, well, go with the flow of your lines, especially if you have unique shapes like the cypress tree or the river. Otherwise, my land, I just picked a direction and stuck with it the whole time. So you want to figure out what you would like to do for your line direction. I've already spoken about line size, the dash size, no bigger than your thumbnail. And choice of color, you want to try to be as realistic as you can, but I suppose if you're limited to the amount of colors that you have, just pick out what you got, do your best, and it all should work out in the end. I would, like these browns that I chose in the road, I made sure not to use them anyplace else in the entire picture. Okay? Now, if you're limited to colors, you need to make that choice and just go, you know what, this is all I've got. I'm going to have to take the blues in the river and use them in my sky. That's okay, guys. It's okay. But just the more color you can use, the better. So again, I chose about 3 colors for each item is all that you really need. If you want to use 4, you can. But this is our project. It's got the short little quick dash lines to match the style that Van Gogh did. I really love this project, but it took a bit of time and I had to rest a little bit because my hand got a little bit sore. But I think everybody can do this project. Just use little bits at a time. And if you need practice, get an extra sheet of paper to plan out what colors you want to use and figure out from there. But I think that everybody should be able to do this one. I cannot wait to see this one. Take your time, do a great job, and I can't wait to see what you guys get on it. All right, everybody take care.